Thank you for being here today. Welcome. And I'm really excited to welcome you to the first, hopefully annual safety forum. No sideways glances over here. I'm really excited for the presentations that both our police department and our fire department are going to put on for us tonight. So, and then once they're finished with their presentations, we'll have some Q&A. So thanks for being here.
We have the Summit Police Department has a short presentation to give tonight. There we go. All right, good. Following myself is going to be Captain Ryan Peters and Lieutenant Charles Daly. And after we're finished with our presentation, we'll take any questions that you may have. Okay, just to give you a quick overview of crime in Summit over the last 3 years. We've showed this graphic before at a number of council meetings. We also, gave a similar presentation. Since the pandemic, the City of Summit, we experienced a significant amount of car thefts and residential burglaries. In 2023, fortunately, based on some of our efforts, we were able to lower the number of motor vehicle thefts to 14 from 26 and 25 the 2 previous years. But unfortunately, in lowering the stolen car thefts or residential burglary thefts, they rose from to 39 from 21 from the previous year, and 16 burglaries from 2021. Okay, strengthening the safety, the community education and partnerships. That's going to be discussed in more detail by Captain Peters. I just wanted to say that we've always, at the Summit Police Department, we believe that our greatest asset, our greatest strength actually, is the positive relationship that we have with our community. And, Captain Peters, he'll discuss some of the programs that we have coming up, some of the new programs that I think you're going to find pretty interesting. Mentioning that we had the increase in burglaries and stolen cars over the last 3 years, the Summit Police Department, we've taken a very aggressive, proactive approach in combating this. We use precision targeting patrols, which are these patrols play a vital role in our proactive policing effort. They focus on police presence in areas of known anticipated criminal activity, and they're designed to deter crime and just pretty much reduce the opportunity for crimes even being committed. These targeted patrols, they're guided by data analysis and intelligence gathering, which allows us to identify crime trends, hotspots, and patterns. By leveraging this information, we can make informed decisions about where and when to deploy resources. Specifically, we concentrate our officers in areas of the town that are where they're most needed. By strategically positioning our officers, we put them in a better position to rapidly respond to any emerging threats or incidents in specific areas. These type of patrols, these targeted patrols, they were very effective over the last couple of years in combating motor vehicle theft in the residential areas and burglary thefts as well. What really put us over the top in having success in this area was that we use our overtime resources to put out additional officers at specific times in specific areas based on data. With these extra patrols, just in 2024 alone, we had 26 arrests of suspected car thieves and/or burglary suspects. We probably interrupted and prevented another maybe 15 to 20 more. We were engaged in 15 motor vehicle pursuits where we chased these car thieves out of town. So by doing that, we actually got ahead of them, and we were able to stop them before they even had an opportunity to steal the cars. Next on our list is the Resident Protection Ordinance. As most of you are aware, Council just recently passed the Resident Protection Ordinance. Just in the last couple of weeks, 2 weeks ago, I believe, March 17th, the Summit Police Department actually used this ordinance in charging an individual for the first time. the incident that we had where we charged this individual, it's a good example to use tonight because I know when this ordinance was introduced, there was some concern that maybe the wrong person would get arrested. Someone like that was just innocently going up to someone's car and mistakenly touching it, or going up to their home and trying to open up their front door, mistakenly would get arrested. But I had pointed out on numerous occasions that before the Summit Police Department would charge anybody with this, there would have to be a whole magnitude of other factors that we consider before charging them. And this particular example on March 17th is a good example of that. On March 17th, we received a 911 call. A resident, this was a little bit after 9, possibly 10 o'clock. They had security cameras, and they were alerted that there was activity on the camera. They saw an individual in the driveway with the hood on and his face covered with a face mask, trying the door handles in the driveway. Fortunately, the cars were locked, and the individual left. This was on Oak Ridge Avenue. They called 911, and they gave a good description of the individual. All officers got there in minutes, and they were able to locate the individual based on the description that was given. Now, we just didn't walk up to the person and arrest them. We conducted a field investigation, trying to find out more information. And there was again, we were going down pretty much going down the checklist of things that the individual was saying to us and the information that we developed. And initially, here's some of the factors that we considered. Not just that the person fit the description. We had officers respond to the scene and observe the video recording of the suspect to make sure that we had the right guy. When we stopped the individual, he denied even going into the person's driveway, which we call the prosecutor that's here. We refer to that as a negative statement that we use in a positive way because we know that individual was there and now he was being deceptive about why he was in the driveway. He also gave a story that didn't really make sense. We asked him, because he said that he didn't live in the area, and we asked him what he was doing there, and he said he took the train in from wherever, and he was just out for a walk. And to Oak Ridge Avenue, for those of you who are familiar, it's quite off the beaten path. Some other elements that we considered were this individual was known to some of our officers as someone that we've had for committing similar offenses. He had just been arrested. We had knowledge that he had just been arrested in Millburn maybe a week to 10 days prior to this incident. Some of the other factors that we considered is when we stopped him, he had his hood up, but he didn't have the mask up when he was walking around. And while we were doing our field interview, a second call came in from a resident on Oak Ridge Avenue saying that just minutes before, in the same time frame, the individual that matched that description tried the door handles of their vehicle. And so this was about 2 or 3 doors down from the original caller. Our officers were able to go and verify from the video recording at that location that the individual we had stopped was the same person. So based on all that information, we had sufficient probable cause to arrest him and charge the individual with attempted burglary. It's actually burglary in the criminal attempt, which means attempted burglary. Those charges were approved by the Union County Prosecutor's Office because we did have the probable cause to charge him. And based on that, we charged him in addition with the resident protection order, 2 counts. So. And last for my portion of the presentation is the deploying additional license plate reader technology. This is the license plate reader technology is something that's been a real effective tool in law enforcement and in Summit in general. 2 years ago, when we started having a problem with the stolen cars and the activity started increasing in our residential areas, the Summit Police Department came up with a plan to deploy license plate readers. The plan was to basically set up what we call the geofence so what we wanted to cover with license plate readers, all areas coming into town and leaving town. And there's quite a few areas, because I know a lot of times when these crimes are taking place, people will come up to us or they'll post online, why don't you just post an officer at the border and stop people before they come in or when they're leaving? Well, there's 15 to 16 different points of entry and exit into town. I don't know if people are aware of that. So we couldn't possibly even cover them. But these license plate readers are a big help in doing that. Now, the license plate readers, they're not like a magic bullet. They're not a complete solution to this problem, but they are a great deal of help. So anyway, when we put in our plan, we put in a plan to install these things in two phases. This year, we finished the first phase, so we're pretty much, I would say, three-quarters of our town is covered with these license plate readers. And then come June, once the budget comes through, the second portion of the project will be completed, and we'll have completed that geofence. And also, too, all of our radio cars or patrol cars are equipped with license plate readers as well. Okay, I will introduce you to Captain Ryan Peters, and he'll talk about all the fun things, the good things that we're doing.
How are you guys? My name is Captain Ryan Peters with the Summit Police Department. I oversee the Support Services Division, which is a combination of the Detective Bureau and Community Services Bureau, which focuses on juvenile detectives, juvenile policing, as well as community policing. Thank you. In addition to what the chief had just referenced, we recently initiated a home security assessment program. Okay, so we saw the statistics on the initial slide. Obviously, there's been an uptick in home burglaries. We saw that specific to motor vehicle thefts. So very concerning. I'm a father, 2 children. I have a wife who often leaves her car unlocked with her bag on the front seat. Not going to go there, but one of the things that the police department in the town that I live in, I had seen was home security assessments. And initially, right out of the gate, I was like, yes, that's a home run. That's something I think that would ease some of the tension that people have based on this uptick of burglaries. So what we had done, we started doing a little bit of research, reaching out to other police departments that had already gone through this process, and ultimately had 5 of our officers certified through the ACPI, American Crime Prevention Institute. And what that does, that gave them information on best practices of what to look for when they're doing a home security assessment, whether or not there's effective lighting, whether or not that there's cameras, whether or not the locking mechanisms or windows are up to date, all the fun facts that would provide you with essentially a personal Fort Knox. That being said, our officers are willing to come out. I think to date, we're upwards of around 80 requests. We've serviced almost 60 of them, so we're trying to facilitate this, keep the ball rolling, which is one of the reasons we certified 5 of our officers. And from what we understand, we're getting really good feedback. A lot of people are really excited about this. We are providing recommendations. We understand that some of them might require some financial obligation, so we're very mindful of that. However, it is something that even some simple fixes, us to come out, give some recommendations, give some people some peace of mind. In addition to that, I made a presentation at the last 2 council meetings ago about our Patron program. Another thing that we had seen, we're trying to stay on the forefront of technology, which is one of the reasons the chief had brought up the automatic license plate readers. And one of the ways to do that would be a drone program. Initially, my thought process was, car burglary suspects, motor vehicle accident. We have suspects, running through backyards. That's how we'll be able to identify them, and it will be used for that as well. But there's a variety of different areas that we could use it not only for public safety, but also to service the city, as long as it falls within compliance of our COA, which is our Certificate of Authorization to Fly within the city. Luckily, we're in Class G airspace, which doesn't give us many restrictions. And we have developed a communication plan with Overlook Hospital because we are mindful that there are helicopters, medevacs coming in and out periodically. So we have established a communication protocol for them as well. In addition to identifying suspects, we can sweep areas, we can use them for community services, community policing details. In addition, we do have several senior housing in town, and we have had situations where seniors have walked away. We've had issues with other people or children walking away. This thing does have thermal imaging, which is a benefit for us, especially at night. I'm not going to lie, during our training program, we might have looked for a lost dog or 2, but I'm sure the owners are happy about that. But nevertheless, it is a great program. It is, our pilots are all in on it. They all got FAA Part 107 certified, which was a lot more grueling and time consuming than we had anticipated. But when it comes to ensuring our officers, ensuring the city, making sure we're protected, we identified that as the best means of doing that. Next, I'm going to try to do our Chief Public Information Officer proud by identifying all the areas in which we communicate with the public. Obviously, with this uptick in criminal activity, specifically car thefts, it's been one of our goals to put information out as fast as possible. Again, as a father, as a as a resident, I would want to know if the police department in my town was actively looking for someone in my neighborhood. So we are very mindful of that. The chief, myself, Captain Schreiber, and the few other people within the police department, as well as the public information office, have access to all of these online platforms. We have Rave Smart 911, Nixle, the City of Summit website, which is cityofsummit.org. We have our own Facebook, so does the city. Same with Instagram, YouTube, and X, which is formerly Twitter. Constantly putting out as much information as we can just to keep the public informed. That being said, we have had times where, there's a challenge for us. We try to get information out as fast as possible, make it as accurate as possible. On the flip side of that coin, we want to make sure that we're vetting that information. So we're not constantly putting stuff out that's inaccurate, because that's a huge thing for public information. Make sure you have accurate information. Next slide, please. Thank you, David. One of the biggest hits we've had for community outreach has been the women's self-defense classes. We actually initiated that prior to COVID under Chief Weck. We initially, right out of the gate, we saw it was a home run. I mean, I think both of our classes, it was right before COVID that we had sold out within like a day or two. So now that things kind of settled down with COVID and people are out and about and not as restrictive, we are reinstituting some of those women's self-defense classes. I want to say we did 4 last year, and we have our next one for this year is on the agenda for tomorrow night, which sold out within 24 hours. They're all free. We have them at the Summit Middle School, and we try to group them between age limit because our defense instructors are very mindful of people's physical capabilities. So we do have them for the younger generation, middle generation, and for seniors as well. Some other programs that either we initiated or we bought into that the Union County has initiated is the SPD Safe Place. So Union County, believe it or not, is actually the first county in the world, because this is a global program, to have full 100% buy-in from all the law enforcement agencies. What the Safe Place program is it initiated out in Seattle. So it was to protect people from the LGBTQ plus community. They were very reserved because the relationship they've had with the police department. They were unsure as to whether or not they'd be welcome, they'd be accepted, whether they'd be believed. So one of their law enforcement officers out in Seattle actually initiated this program, which allows people who are victims of crimes, and it expanded from the LGBTQ plus community onto any other community that's maybe either disenfranchised or viewed a certain way by some people, to give them a safe place to be harbored if they were victims of a crime. So say, somebody came up to them, said something off topic or offended them or assaulted them. We've gone out to our businesses, to our schools, to our rec center, and anybody who has a rainbow sticker in their window has made the pledge to the Summit Police Department that if somebody is a victim of a crime, they will take them in, they will lock their doors, and they will call 911 for them. So we're really proud of that program, especially considering we had such a buy-in. We went down to the Central Business District. We worked with Summit Downtown Inc., and a lot of our businesses bought into that, which is great. The Blue Envelope, which is another program, not a program that we've had before. The Blue Envelope is a program, again, that came from the county. What that is for people with autism and other sensory disorders. They actually we have these at headquarters, blue envelopes. So essentially it checks off the characteristics, because if anybody has anybody with special needs in their family, they know that sometimes noises and sounds and bright lights and uniforms can be very intimidating, right? And sometimes you could say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. So what this envelope does is it allows to break down that communication barrier between the person who might have difficulty communicating with the police officer and the police officer themselves. So they can hand the envelope will have all their credentials in it, and it pretty much just identifies to all officers that they're communicating with someone that might have some issues understanding what they're saying. And then lastly, we have the Arrive program, another Union County initiative, which essentially we've now partnered police officers with mental health professionals Monday through Friday. They're driving around Union County. The county is grouped into different sectors. We're a part of the North sector. So we branched up with or partnered up with 5 other towns, I believe. Us, Union, Kenilworth, Roselle, Kane, and I think that's it. Hillside. So essentially that's a rotating schedule where we'll have one of our officers or one of their officers with a mental health professional driving around the north side section. And what they will do is they'll be secondary responders to any mental health calls. So if we're going on a call for mental health where somebody might need an evaluation or might need to be hospitalized, we as law enforcement officers, we need to know a lot of information about a lot of different topics, but there are certain areas that we need to rely on the professionals, the people who are specifically trained to handle these calls, to assist us with. It also kind of streamlines the process in order to get people the mental health that they need. So that's a great program. Our officers they're building relationships with a lot of these mental health professionals. We're doing a lot of follow-up. So when they're not busy and they're not actively taking calls, we're establishing files, essentially, or profiles with people in town, so we could follow up with them, make sure they're, moving through the process to get themselves better help. And I'm going to leave Lieutenant Traffic Daly up with the really fun stuff: speed enforcement, pedestrian safety, and bicycle safety. We are going to be taking questions afterwards if anybody has any questions on my topics or anything else. Thank you.
I am Lieutenant Charlie Daly. I am the Bureau Commander for Traffic and Records, so exciting things. Real quickly, I'm just going to do an overview of kind of what we do in the Traffic Bureau. Obviously speed enforcement, but we do a multitude of other things that really to enhance safety within the city. So we try to be as proactive and get ahead of the problems and identify problems in areas that we can correct immediately. This is going to be an ongoing thing. You'll see us out doing enforcement in the center of town, especially with all the pedestrian safety issues that we've been having, as far as people not using the crosswalks and drivers being distracted. So we try to look out for that stuff, and we've actually brought other officers in on overtime to combat these bad behaviors and correct them before they get worse. Also, everything through traffic safety is going to be through the 3 E's of traffic: education, enforcement, and engineering. So the education portion of it goes 2 different ways. One, every time we have an interaction with somebody on a motor vehicle stop, that's an education action that we're gonna have. They may get a summons, but we're trying to educate them, and that might just be enough to correct the action. Also, we're in the schools trying to do education with the youth that are getting their license through driver's education, and we're partnering with AAA as well. So they have some good programs with the distracted driving, and also now they just implemented another program called Shifting Gears, which focuses on impaired driving, which is another big topic in a lot of different areas of the country. Then after that, we would end up doing the enforcement aspect of it, and that'll curb the bad behavior most of the time, and then for a little bit, and then we'd have to go back and kind of touch it up a little bit and hit those areas that we noticed that we had the bad behavior. And then finally, engineering. So when the education portion and the enforcement portion doesn't work, we work very closely with the engineering department here within the city, and we look at ways to re-engineer the roadways, be it maybe sightline and maybe getting a clearer sightline, speed humps if it warrants speed humps, and then traffic signals, stop signs, and everything is governed through the manual for uniform traffic control devices. We can't just arbitrarily put these devices where we would like to put them. It all has to be approved through the state DOT and Division of Highway Traffic Safety. Pedestrian safety, we will be partnering with AAA. We're working on that to have them come in and do decoy training and have them deployed in the center of town. So this way, it'll give it a little bit more awareness for our pedestrians that are walking, and then also the motorists, that they're going to be more conscious of the people that are waiting at the intersections to cross. And it's also another opportunity to kind of educate the pedestrians, because just because you're waiting on the side of the road, you can't just jump into traffic. You have to wait. You don't have the right of way until you're in the crosswalk, okay? And we're also installing the rapid flash and beacon lights, which I love these things. Hopefully by the end of my career, I can have them through throughout most of the town. That is just a warning device. It's to allow the driver to know that somebody is waiting on the corner, and hopefully we're gonna do the right thing and yield to that pedestrian, so this way they can safely traverse the street. And finally, bicycle safety. So we are in the schools with our younger elementary school students, and we try to reach them at an early age. And we've done bicycle rodeos through the community policing unit, where they will be doing bicycle inspections and just going over basically safety in general, looking at their helmets, making sure they have the right equipment to ride their bikes. Anybody that is 17 years old or under in the state of New Jersey is required to wear a helmet. So we're trying to be out there, not to give tickets to kids, but to educate. And we did have programs through AAA that we were able to partner with them, and they had helmet giveaways, which was great because those kids that couldn't secure a helmet, afford a helmet, they were able to now have a helmet and get the proper safety equipment that they needed. So through all these initiatives. It's going to be an ongoing process as the town evolves. I was born and raised here. There's a lot more pedestrian traffic. There's a lot more vehicular traffic. And the one thing that people need to realize too, the surrounding towns, that really affects Summit as well. When they're doing all of this building, people have to get to where they're going, and they may come through our town. Even though, resident-wise, we're very small, we're a very, very busy town, hence we're a city. So, we just have to keep at it, and with partnering with the community, being the eyes and ears, and letting us know where there's issues, and being able to address those issues, we're going to be making Summit as safe as we possibly can.
Thank you, I appreciate you coming tonight. It's always good. Usually when people meet the fire department, if they're having a bad day, it's an emergency. It's very nice to be on this nice, relaxed format tonight and have a little discussion. So real quick, before we get to our main topic tonight, a little quick, brief overview of what the fire department's about. We are a CRE department, 32-member department. We have an operational side, which is the firemen that work 24 hours on duty all the time. We also have a fire prevention staff and administration staff. So safety is our ultimate goal in the fire department. Our mission statement is to provide the highest level of protection to the citizens of Summit. We do that in a couple different ways. One of them is operational readiness and situational awareness of the town we work in. So every day on the fire department, we're on duty. Our staff goes through safety checks of our apparatus, make sure they're ready to respond. They check the equipment on it every day. We also go through a rigorous training program. Every day we're on duty, we're doing some kind of training. Most of it's hands-on training, very strenuous. Physical fitness is a big component, so there's workout time for our guy. Basically, when the tones go off, we make sure that our firemen are fit, ready to go to work to help the public out. That's our ultimate mission. Educate our guys, train them so they're able to do the jobs. The fire service today is different than it was 20 years ago. With all the different building industries, the different techniques, the fire service has really evolved in how fires are spread this year. As far as building materials, they burn quicker, burn hotter, so we have to constantly adjust our strategies, our tactics, and our training techniques to make sure that we're ahead of all the new technology around us. So another point of that is also prevention education. We do fire inspections. We're in charge of making sure that the buildings are in place the way they were designed. So when a building is built in town, there's fire protection systems that the code enforcement requires you to build in there. Once they're in place, like this building has sprinklers in it, we come around, make sure that everything is working properly, it's safe, it's inspected according to the code, and everything is working orderly. So that's done every day as well. Another component of that is education. We go out and educate the public and schools on fire prevention programs. Lessons to fire prevention weeks in October. We go around all the schools, visit all the schools, talk about fire safety, things of that nature. We have a trailer that goes around to the schools and all. Another big component is our wellness and health fitness of it. Fires today are different than they were 20. Like I said, a lot of different toxins in fires today. So with our new firehouse, one of the main features in our building is protecting our firefighters when they come back from calls. Years ago, it was when you're on the scene, you encounter a lot of injuries to the public, safety features. We learned over the years that when a fire is over, we come back to a building, we bring a lot of that stuff back into the building. A lot of bad stuff that a fire will make them sick over time. So we have a lot of new features on the new firehouse. Better? Yes. Okay, there you go. All right. So it's also just keeping our firemen safe, public safe. When the citizens come to our building, we want to make sure the building is clean, it's safe. When the firemen come back from calls, that they are clean and safe. So our new firehouse has a lot of pathways and circulation to prevent all these contaminants coming into the building. So we're working every day. So that's the main mission. Make sure we're ready to work. Make sure we're here for the public. We do thousands of hours of training a year. We also work very closely with Millburn and Springfield Fire Department. We have a shared service agreement. So anytime we have any kind of event in town, they automatically send us resources, which is a big help for us. Prevents fires from spreading quicker and faster. We also do pre-plans. Summit is a very old community. A lot of the buildings in town are made out of wood cores. So we do pre-planning. What we do is that our inspectors go out to all the buildings in town, and we pre-plan if there was a fire in this building, what features of this building would accelerate the fire, how we can prevent the fire from spreading. And so when we arrive on scene, we have a good floor plan of the building, where the shutoffs are, gas shutoffs, electrical shutoffs. So it kind of prevents the loss of property in town. So our downtown business is a huge part of Summit. If we had a major event day, it'll affect our taxes, it'll affect the residents and the business owners. So make sure that we're ahead of all those new techniques that can help prevent all the buildings from catching fire. So, all right. With that, one of our main topics tonight is with the safety is that we initiated a new program to alert the public of incidents in town that can be hazardous as far as traffic goes, and also to protect our firefighters from accident and vehicle circulation on the highways and in town. So Lieutenant Chris Esposito was kind of spearheaded this program. He brought it to our attention about 6-7 months ago. We looked at it, researched it. He was the guy behind the scenes, so he's going to explain to us how this program works and the safety features and what goes on with the program. So with that, I'll introduce Lieutenant Christopher Esposito.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Chief, for the introduction. My name is Chris Esposito. I'm a lieutenant with the Summit Fire Department. I've been a career member since 2012, and I'm just going to talk about our Haas safety system. I'm going to go through a presentation, and I'll talk to you about my personal journey finding it and coming to where we're at now. So thank you, Mayor, for all your support, Council, Amy, David, everybody, the whole team coming together. So the statistics on the board here about distracted driving, basically everybody has either a phone or a screen in front of them when they're behind the wheel. Firefighters, we have our computers. We have an MDT computer that shows us where we're going. Everybody else is usually looking at their phone. I know, probably show of hands, even myself, I'm guilty. Even if you know where you're going, you'll plug it in, check the traffic, have it on the screen in front of you. We're going to leverage that technology for our safety and your safety. So this product here really touches base with communications with all the firefighters and with the public. So the point of this system is that if we're at an emergency and our lights are on, it sends a message to all the vehicles in the area saying fire truck ahead or emergency scene ahead, please slow down and move over. Our reaction time on the highway when we're doing 70 miles an hour could be less than a second before we see lights and then we have to pull over. In the connected world we live in, leverage technology. We want to be able to let people know before they see the lights that there's an incident ahead. We've had incidents on the highway in Summit and other communities where people have been struck. I pulled up the statistics. The last 10 years, 85 firefighters have been struck and killed. That's a large number, and any loss of life is always a tragedy. So in my mind, if we can prevent it with this system, it's really a benefit. So we have here in the presentation a photo of the actual device. It's basically a cellular transmitter, and when our lights are turned on, that gets power, and it starts pinging all the phones, GPS, navigation systems, Waze users, Apple Maps, saying crash ahead. And that communication allows people to slow down and move over up to 30 seconds in advance, which is key. That time and reaction distance, I know I was out on the highway yesterday morning. We had a rolled over tractor trailer, and even with just one lane going by, people are still trying to get to where they're going. As we said, with the community building up and everybody trying to get back to work, and it's can be a little crazy out on the highway. And on surface streets as well. So anytime those lights are activated, it's going to send that safety message out to all the drivers around. So this system is based on a safety cloud. It's GPS based, so it knows exactly where the fire truck is and then is able to message all the units, all the receivers around, which could be cell phones, smart vehicles, Waze users, and it's real time. So as the officer said, for police activity, you want to know right away if something's going on in your community and if you're driving up on it. We know about a lot of stuff with social media and the internet, and this is something that's very timely and allows people to be safe for driving and allows our safety to be increased. So this is an example of what the alert looks like. So on the top you can see emergency vehicle away, 0.4 miles, fire truck on scene, and the other version of the alert, depending on your system, emergency vehicle ahead. So being able to see that sign on your phone or on your screen before you see the back of the engine, to me, is key. Once you see the engine, it's almost too late. So that's really what the basis of the system. And I'll just talk for a second about my journey to get to this spot. So as the officer said, actually, I don't know if they stole my script here, the 3 E's of education, engineering, and enforcement. So education, events like this, being able to share what's going on in the community and let people know that the slow down, move over law does apply. And we want people to realize that for their safety and our safety. We've all seen people trying to swerve over on the highway and try to get over to the next lane and waiting to the last second when there's 2 lanes blocked. It's not really the time to do that. So if we get people to do that a little bit further, it'll help our safety and their safety. The engineering side of it, what brought me to this journey, was when we were designing new fire trucks, we always look and see what the new technology is. New lights, new signs. We recently instituted the Chevron system, so those yellow, lime green, and red stripes increase our visibility. But my journey was, there's got to be something better. Seeing digital signboards like you see on the highway now that say crash ahead, move over 5 miles ahead, maybe do a signboard on the truck. I don't know. There's got to be something better out there. So back in November, I was at a conference down in Atlantic City and met the DOT supervisors for the state. They're the safety guys for the whole state of New Jersey, all the highway systems. I said, is there a better light, better signboard, something out there? There's got to be something. They said, I know what you're onto, and I'll put you in touch with the right person. And that brought us to the Haas system, which is the safety cloud. that device was something that I never even heard of. And I try to stay up on the industry. And as we talked about technology evolving, talked to some end users. We had a person from Piscataway come out with their unit and demonstrate it for us. And it really it clicked. It made sense. And the economics of it, not an expensive thing. It increases safety for us and for everybody in the room. The enforcement side of it, that's the brothers and sisters in blue. They handle that if anybody, obviously doesn't follow it. But the engineering and the education are the key parts for our side of things. And being able to have that education beforehand and during the incidents with that alert on the screen, I think is really important. So it's something I've been personally involved in an apparatus crash, and it's not something I want to see anybody go through. We've had some of our members be involved in apparatus crashes on the highway, and they're doing their job. They're providing a safety block. So when we position our apparatus, as in that photo there, that's meant to absorb the impact and protect the firefighters and the police officers and EMTs that are down from that incident. If they were standing there, and we've all seen crashes on the highway, I'm sure, tow truck drivers, standing on the edge of the road is extremely dangerous. Somebody goes by at 90 miles an hour, that's very, very scary. I'd rather go to a house fire, honestly, than be on the side of the highway. The chief will attest. I think it's one of the most dangerous things we do in the firehouse in Summit. So having that apparatus there to protect the members operating and then having the alert for the public driving up on it, I think it's really a home run for everybody. And thank you for your time. Appreciate everyone. Thank you.
Okay. So please feel free to come up and join us, or not really join us, ask us questions, ask our safety professionals questions, and please keep your comments or questions to 3 minutes. Thank you.
I have a question about the license plate reader. I think everyone can hear me anyway. What information are you gathering, and how are you using it?
The information that we're gathering, we're just getting alerts on felony vehicles, stolen vehicles, wanted persons, missing persons, silver alerts. We're not using it for administrative violations like unregistered vehicles. The data that we collect, it's protected in the same manner as a criminal history would be protected. When we run a criminal history, for example, we have to have a reason for running a criminal history. When we go on a computer, we have to put a case number and indicate why we're running that criminal history and why we're looking for that information. So down the road, if we want to look for information that this database collects, same thing. We have to have reasonable suspicion to go in there, and we have to document why we're going in there. We just can't go on a fishing expedition.
Okay, thank you.
Bonnie Morrison, 24 Rotary Drive. I had a question about the electronic speed readers on Division, which are not currently active. Back at the capital budget meeting in December, it was mentioned that there is data collected through them that could then be downloaded. I was just curious what data is being collected.
Okay, so the data, there's several different types of speed readers. It's not collecting your personal data, and it's not going to capture a registration for a car that was speeding. It's going to let us know that the vehicle was speeding, time of day, direction. So this way we develop patterns, and this way, we're not just kind of going out fishing. You'll be able to identify the target areas, and we'll be able to be most productive. The other thing with that as well, with the download of that, you'd be able to, some of them you can move them to different spots. The ones that we get are usually fixed, and they are usually solar powered, because we've learned over the years with the ones that are battery operated, we're changing the battery every other day. And we just, if we can do more areas, it's going to be more effective, and that's why we ended up going with the solar power. So you're going to see more and more of those. It's a good thing, and as time goes on, it'll evolve with the technology. Some of them even have the strobe lights in it, and some of them even display messages with smiley faces and stuff like that. But we don't want to make it too bad where it shocks the driver and could possibly be detrimental, more than it's going to do good.
Okay, thanks. Dory Gagnon, 27 Bedford. First, I want to thank Mayor Fagan for posting on her Mondays with the Mayor, because I didn't even know about this. So I just quickly saw her video and jumped down here. So I want to say thank you for that. Maybe we could just notify other people, because there's not many of us here. a little earlier, and I think you would have gotten a better response. I have a couple questions. The fire, I noticed that there was an emergency on Maple Street and it was closed down the other day. Ironic. So, that was a big response after we've had this big discussion about Maple Street. And then I noticed there was another emergency at the train station, a bunch of trucks the other day, and there was kind of like mayhem in the middle of town, but not many police officers. And my daughter was working and a lot of chaos. So just a couple of observations I've noticed in town that just made me a little alerted when traffic is diverted and then people are parked illegally and then pedestrians are all over the place. So I think that when there's an emergency, we need to have a little more response throughout town so people don't park stupidly and people are driving chaotically and don't know what to do just from being an observer and seeing what's happening. But I would like to understand what happened on Maple Street just as an innocent observer. The other thing I've noticed is that the relays over the weekend got a lot of backlash, and we have people playing baseball here. We have people all over town doing sports. But I think a concern of mine is the sight lines. There's a big accident at the high school when kids can't see around. I'm finding that I'm having trouble, like driving and seeing around. If we can do something with the streets and sight lines and parking around corners and stuff, maybe that would be helpful for people with their parking in the fields. If we can address that. Some people would have bushes that are too close to the curb. You can't see it's around the middle school, some of those areas. And I think if we can proactively address the parking issues before people get really upset and start emailing and screaming online, that could be a problem solver before it's a bigger issue. So thanks.
I'll look at the date. We do a lot of runs uptown. But if you want to give us the data on that, we can look into that. But typically, just to answer the question about the trucks and all, we always are very mindful on where we position our apparatus, especially uptown. The roads are narrow with parking both sides of the street, so we are very particular on where we park our vehicles. Like I said before, a lot of our responses are actually pre-planned to eliminate a lot of traffic issues. We always do contact law enforcement if we're uptown for traffic issues of that nature. But then it's part of our response through town. It's kind of a pre-planned event to get uptown to do that. And we also like to, once we have all units, if there's nothing that's urgent, we'd like to clear units as fast as we can to avoid any kind of safety or traffic issues, things of that nature. So, but if you want to email me something about that event, I can definitely look in the files and find out what event, and we can definitely give you some information on that particular event. Okay.
Al Dill, 16 Montrose. I hadn't come here with any questions, but I'm watching this group tonight, and I want to make a statement. Now, Rosie knows I like to make statements, so the technology is good, the equipment's good, everything that's being done is terrific. But I want everybody to be aware, it's the people. It's the people who are making the town safe. It's the people like Chris coming up with his idea for all the new traffic devices. And I'm not trying to blow my own horn, as they say, but I've been on the fire department for 47 years, 16 years with the police explorers, 12 years as a councilman. I've seen it all. And today, it's just fabulous. And it's the people, and that includes our garbage collectors, our road department people. This building was set up as an emergency shelter, the community services. Everybody who works for the city, all they're doing is trying to make the city safe. So, at the risk of getting the current council members upset, take care of the people. They make the city work, and they also make you look good. So, this is what makes the city work, and I'm proud to be over 65 years here. I'm not going to say how far over, but in this town. But it's the people. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Andrew McCurdy, 53 Parkview Terrace. Thanks, everyone, for the presentations. I had a couple of questions on the crime stats. Chief, I don't know if you can give some insight into the 2024 stats, particularly on burglaries and car thefts, and I guess versus 2023, same year to date. If you want to answer that one.
So 2024 year to date, actually the end of the first quarter, we had a total of 42 Part 1 class crimes. Out of those 42, 5 of them were burglaries. 4 were actual burglaries. 1 was an attempt. And regarding motor vehicle theft, to date, we have 3 motor vehicle thefts. And I believe all 3 came off of car dealership lots. So there's an improvement as far as motor vehicle thefts from residential areas where key fobs have been left in the vehicle.
Do you know what the year-over-year comparison is?
Year to year, we're on par with last year as far as burglaries and stolen cars, but we are down significantly in stolen cars from 2021. At this point in 2022, at this point we had 9 or 10 at this point, and we have 3 here.
And then if there is like a typical prototype of how those burglaries go, is the most common one, people are at home and people are coming in looking for keys, if you could say?
No, we can. That's a good question. I'll use last year's statistics, for example. Everybody thinks that all these burglaries are related to the car thefts. They are not. We really had, I would say, 3 types of burglaries, prototype burglaries last year. The first one, I don't know if you're familiar, you might have heard it on the news or read it in the newspaper. In this area, a lot of the affluent areas, out as far as Long Island, they had these organized burglary groups, the South American burglary groups. We were victims, on a number of occasions. I would say between 6 to 8 of our burglaries were committed, we think, by those groups. They are the professional type burglars where they break into a home when nobody's home. They make sure that nobody's home. That's your traditional type of burglar. They don't want to, encounter anybody. And then there's the car theft suspects that started doing burglaries. That's a problem that started with us last year. They were targeting specific types of high-end vehicles, and if they couldn't get into the vehicle outside, they were hell-bent on getting that vehicle, so they would actually break into the house and try to steal the key fob. That was probably maybe 25% of the burglaries were the car theft suspects. And out of all those attempts, most of them were attempts. They were unsuccessful attempts. A lot of them, the homeowner, scared them off, or alarm scared them off. I believe there was, out of the 8, I think 3 of them were actually successful, where they got into the home and they actually took the key fobs to the vehicles. And then the remaining are just like your run-of-the-mill, like opportunist type burglaries, people with drug problems.
Got it. Yep. Yeah, that's helpful. And I was wondering, was the number last year around 14 for auto thefts?
Auto thefts last year, yes, it was 14, and that was down from 26 the year before.
How does it compare to pre-pandemic levels? Is it
pre-pandemic levels? I've gone over these historical stats, quite a bit. Going back years ago when I first started, the number of auto thefts was a tremendous amount. And I always talk about the big difference, though, is that going back then when 3 times as many cars were getting stolen, they were getting stolen from parking lots and off the street, like in populated areas in the center of town, because the car thief would go to the area where the cars were. As cars became harder to steal, where you couldn't hot wire them anymore, where you needed the key fobs, our statewide and nationwide stolen cars really it went down almost to non-existent numbers. So going back pre-pandemic, we were looking at maybe anywhere between 3 and 10 or 12 stolen cars in a year. And then after the pandemic, this was a problem that went statewide, countywide, and it affected Summit. Somebody, figured out that when you go to the suburbs, these are nice towns. They have expensive cars. The people, they feel safe, in their home, and they were leaving their key fobs in the car. So that became a real problem. They started targeting residential neighborhoods and stealing the cars with the key fobs. Now, when that started, just after the pandemic, it really exploded. We were up around 31, 32 stolen cars, and then that number the following year went to about 28 to 26. And as we educated the public and we've taken on more proactive approach, that number has gone down. But again, when that number went down, less people now are coming in to steal the cars, but the ones that are remaining are the ones that will go into houses if need be. In the beginning, that wasn't a concern. They were just looking for the easy theft, and they were moving on to the, if they couldn't get into that car, they'd just go to the next car. But in 2023, that trend changed as I guess as it got harder for them to steal the cars, and but the demand was still there for them. So they started entering the homes.
And you guys can stop me if I'm taking up too much time. I could talk about this for a long time. In terms of arrest rates, do you know for particularly burglaries and car thefts, like what are our arrest rates?
With the clearance rate, that number is different. When I mentioned the 26 arrests of the suspects, that would be people that were in stolen cars from other towns. People that we suspected that were here to steal cars. That we either caught them in the act, or they had committed a crime in another town and brought that stolen car here. So that number is going to be drastically different from our clearance rate on the burglars and the stolen cars. But those clearance rate, they're pretty much on par with national clearance rates. I think like burglary, it's up around 15% nationally, 12%. We're a little higher than that, about 20% on our clear. And on stolen cars, I'm not sure. I think we're around, right around the national average of 12 to 15% clearance.
Got it. And am I right that in the budget you guys are hiring or proposing to hire two totally new officers, or is it filling?
No, this is to replace the two.
Filling
the ones that we just put in for. Yeah, they're going to replace two that are retiring.
I see. And then my last question was: it sounded like great work on Oak Ridge on that arrest that you guys had. Do you follow it at the prosecutor's office? Do you know if that person was detained?
Oh yeah,
or if the criminal charges stuck?
Yeah, that person. They weren't released or they were sent to the county for a bail hearing. Now, after that bail hearing, I'm sure he's been has since been released. But we will.
Do you know if he was?
I don't know 100%.
detained?
No, I could find that out and let you know. But I'm just basing it on past experience. He probably was released, and we'll get updates as his case progresses. But as far as him getting charged with our city ordinance, I would expect that to come, back to municipal court for quite some time. That might be over a year before we hear anything on that.
Right. That's it. I want to thank you guys for all the work that you're doing for the presentations. Sounds like good stuff. So thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa Allen, 125 Blackburn Road. I want to thank you guys for being here tonight. You work endless hours for the city. And so to be here, I want to thank our audience for coming tonight as well. Safety is a number one priority in our town, and I think for everyone. So thank you for putting yourself on the line every day and working hard for us. And thank you, Rosemary, for coming, and David. Two questions. One, well, first of all, I would like to say that we did a photo contest for Local Government Week. And so those 3 pictures up there were the 3 finalists out of all the pictures. So when everybody sees this at home, thank you for submitting your photos and for Summit Pride. So did I forget anything? Okay. Yep. Oh, and each photo won a $50 gift certificate. So first question. Chief Evers, can you talk a little bit about mutual aid? Because I don't think a lot of people understand how incredible that is and what it does.
Sure. Yeah, so the Summit Fire Department participates in 2 types of aids in our department. One of them I spoke about earlier is automatic aid. So typically our units can respond to a typical structure fire. Before the fire is confirmed, we have agreement with Milburn and Springfield, and they automatically send resources to our town. If we get on scene, if it is a fire, they continue in and they provide very great service for us. If it's confirmed not a fire, we free those units up and then go back to the towns. Mutual aid is more of a bigger scope, so if it is a big fire, we exhaust resources very quickly. So we have an agreement with Union County Mutual Aid, which is comprised of all the towns in Union County fire departments. So as we need more resources as the scene escalates, we call Union County Mutual Aid, and they give us whatever resources we request. Typically, you've all heard of 2nd, 3rd, 4th alarms. So every alarm brings in more resources. Typically, it's 2 engines and a ladder truck. That's pretty much an alarm. So as you see more alarms, we're just requesting more resources, manpower-wise and equipment-wise, into our town to help mitigate whatever the incident is, either be a fire or any kind of natural disaster. So those are kind of the two types of aids. Automatic aid, which we do almost on a daily basis in Summit, and then on a larger scale, it's mutual aid from the county.
Thank you. It's very important. People should know that. And then Lieutenant Daly, if you can talk about traffic and parking a little bit around. I know that Tatlock Lights came up this weekend because we had a big event for the relays. There's two types of events, specifically breaking out the BOE, the event that happened at Tatlock this weekend, which is in partnership with the BOE, and then you have other events like 4th of July. Can you talk a little bit about the process of planning for a school event? And I wrote it down. Hold on. I even have to write my questions down. Hold on. And I didn't bring my glasses. So talk about the process of managing traffic for the event and the relationship we have with the BOE in terms of these type of events.
Sure. So I was in contact with Dan Healy, who was the athletic director for the high school. And this is the third year for that relay. Second year that we actually had some involvement in it because it's grown exponentially as far as participation and then spectator participation. So signage was placed out on all the side streets, surrounding streets, Lewis and Aubrey, Hartley, School on the corners, and there is already prohibited parking on Canoebrook Butler Parkway on the targeted areas where it's kind of troublesome with around the turns where line of sight is a little bit less. They had around, I believe, 25 teams. So at least 25 school buses were staged at the high school. It's more in the realm of 30 to 40 school buses because some of the schools had larger teams and they had 2 school buses, maybe even some of them 3. Last year, the relay ended and it was staggered dismissal. As the events ended, schools would leave at different times. This year, all the buses released at the same time and converged on one area, small area, large volume of vehicle in a short period of time, and we had a little bit of gridlock. We did have officers on scene to help mitigate that. We were able to clear it up in 20 minutes. I can say that I have firsthand experience because I got a photo from my wife, and that's when I was alerted to it at home, and we made sure that the proper measures were being taken to, disperse all the traffic and make sure everybody was able to leave safely. So I've already been in contact with Dan Healy, and I'm going to implement further measures next year, just because, as even though they have 25 schools, the teams could grow. There could be, instead of 50 kids, there could be 70 kids. With 70 kids, there's 20 more sets of parents, family members that are going to come and watch, and that's going to bring more traffic into the neighborhoods. So we just need to make sure that we manage it, appropriately, and that we plan ahead. So those are a couple of the things that we're going to do, and possibly also use Washington School as a pickup area for the buses. So this way we can keep these larger vehicles off of the secondary roads, and this way they have a designated area, keep the kids out of the roadway so they don't have to cross the street, because I did see buses parked on the far side of the street, which I wasn't happy with, because that's just a risk that we don't have to take.
Okay. So different. They were staggered last year, not
Correct.
this year. Lesson learned.
Correct.
Get a
And-
walkie-talkie. So a BOE
Correct.
is
So
talking to you. Okay.
they've assured me that they're going to have somebody that's going to kind of be the liaison up in the parking lot, because where they did stage the buses, there was no problem. Everything was great. Of course, we're going to have the typical parking complaints, because people park and kind of gamble in a no parking zone. Maybe they think they're not going to get a ticket, but we've addressed every single safety issue, and there was nothing that was egregious that was causing an issue until the end with the buses, and that was the last 20 minutes of the disbursement of this event.
Okay. And then I'm going to walk away, but my final question is how does that differ from an event like July 4th? How would you plan for that?
So July 4th, I think we're up in and around the realm of 4,000 people that come in and around Memorial Field. So the difference is, too, we kind of put the no parking, restricted parking more so in the immediate area because we have like fallout zones, safety zones, stuff like that, that fire can tell you a little bit more about with the fireworks and, strategically where we have to place people and how all of that stuff goes off. But we do restrict one side of the street parking, and that's done strategically as well. So this way we point everybody going out of the area instead of going all different directions, and now that's what's going to create gridlock. So as long as we keep traffic flowing, it's going to disperse and work its way out. Just if you travel the Parkway or the Turnpike, if everybody stayed in their lane, did the speed limit, no crazy lane changes, and so on and so forth, we'd get where we need to go in a timely fashion. But unfortunately, this is the world we live in, and we kind of have to bear all of that nonsense. So with the 4th of July parking, we kind of branch out to further neighborhoods because it has to accommodate 4,000 plus people. And people do walk, bike, so that does help out a lot. And the difference is, too, this is a nighttime event, 4th of July, so we want to make it as safe as possible. And these roadways will remain closed until the pedestrian traffic does disperse.
Jamel Boyer, Councilman Ward 2. Councilman Dill, I mean, what a statesman, what a speech. I mean, come on. That's how you've been a councilman for 12 years. You can't do that to us. I'll start on the other end. Lieutenant Daly, here's a question for you. How do we get our kids to wear helmets? Is that a mic drop or what?
That's a tough one. I mean, being the father of 4 kids, and, I've had to go through this battle as well. It's got to start at home. I know we can give them the helmet. They leave the house with the helmet, and a lot of times we're going to end up seeing it draped over the handlebars, and they're riding around without the helmet. Years ago, there was somebody that said they made this statement that granted it's 17 years old and under to have to wear this helmet. Everybody should be wearing a helmet because the person or the thing that doesn't know your age is the ground. If a child is going to hit the ground or an adult's going to hit the ground, you're going to have the same effect. So me as a parent, if I was to ride a bicycle, I would definitely try to, set a good example and start that at home at a young age. So this way they can see the importance of it. Unfortunately, a lot of times it would take an event, somebody that they know or something that they see to actually see what, the significance of not wearing a helmet could do to you. So that's why we try to get into the schools. We are in the elementary schools, and we do a bicycle safety program. And, this way the officers come in and, we can kind of just go through some basic stuff and making the wearing of a bicycle helmet kind of a cool thing. And if they have that habit, just like an adult, and everybody else in a car, putting a seatbelt on. And, we've probably all been there where, you're in a rush, you get in the car. It's important to buckle that seatbelt. So I've had my kids tell me, Dad, put the seatbelt on. So, we've all been there. And I've seen firsthand, not wearing the seatbelt, what happens. And then, the wearing of the seatbelt, the outcome in a crash. And it definitely makes a difference. So, we just kind of have to keep drilling that into the kids. And, if we do see them on the, out in the public and they aren't wearing a helmet, or we see the helmet on the handlebars, we will stop. Hey, just talk to them. And, when I was a patrol officer and we actually got the helmets through AAA, we carried them in the police car. And, some of these kids, didn't have the means to acquire one of these helmets. So now with that interaction, now they do have a helmet. And you know what? That's one kid that we were able to save and, protect them a little bit more.
Yeah, great points. And thank you for putting the accountability back on the parents. I appreciate that. I had to go home and convince my 14-year-old to wear a helmet. No, but I think that, with the mayor's help, we can work and try to do something cool to get the kids to wear helmets. I think it's a big deal. But thank you for, the AAA. I think that'll work. And having helmets in the car, phenomenal, right? It's like, hey, kid, here's a helmet. You actually got to wear it to go home, right? And maybe you save a life that day, right? Captain Peters, wonderful presentation that you did. I thought it was great. I have a question about the drones. Are there certain things that you can't use the drones for, like for traffic, that is? Like we have a big event. Can you throw the drone up and kind of look at what's going on in the area, see what cars are parked, and maybe some cars are potentially contributing to non-visibility and things like that. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so our COA, our Certificate of Authorization to Fly in Class G airspace, designates our authority to launch that drone for any law enforcement purposes. So that would definitely fall in line with something that we'd be able to deploy it for. There are some limitations when it comes to assisting certain departments with just flying around for specific reasons. We're obviously not going to utilize it to assist any like private vendors that are going to come in and pay us to do it. But we do, when we talked about mutual aid, we are working with other departments. I know currently Union County Prosecutor's Office is actually in the process of developing a regional drone unit, because there are certain departments in certain towns within Union County that don't have the means to acquire one. So whether or not we participate that, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But we have utilized other departments' drones prior to initiating ours, because we just got ours this year in 2024, or at least deployed it. We had purchased it last year. But no, we have our limitations. Our drone operators are the Part 107 FAA certified. So they're very cognizant of that. They're cognizant, and these things are great. The technology is there when it comes to bringing the drone home and offloading all the information and data that it supplies from that one mission. Aside from the GPS, it gives you the wind speeds, the weather conditions. Obviously, the drone operator, we're going to get a full video and audio footage of the entire operation from the second they launch to the time they land. We had referenced this in our presentation at the council meeting, but I failed to say it before. All of us on the administrative staff within the police department, as well as the fire department, depending on the call for service, because we do have different CFS codes or designation type codes that when our drone operator puts it in of what type of code it is, it determines who's going to get notified. So we have assisted the fire department on at least one occasion, and we plan on assisting them more for working fires because of the thermal imaging. It can assist them in identifying hot spots in certain areas. But what that will do is once our drone operators launch the drone, is a text message goes out to the all administrative staff within the police department. And if it's a fire department assist, they'll get a text message as well. So if the fire chief is home and he's on his way in and he'll get a text message, he can actually view that drone feed in live real time. So I've been home before and all of a sudden I get the text message and I'm not informed because our officers have gotten a call for service. They threw their uniforms on, they raced there, they got the drone, and they were out assisting Milburn with trying to identify a couple of burglary suspects. But once I saw the text went out as an administrator, obviously my curiosity took over, and I clicked that link, and I was able to monitor in real time exactly what they were doing and see what they saw. It is a great tool. I think I don't want to say it's limitless, but I think our ability to use it for a variety of different areas, as long as again it falls within our COA, we'd be happy to assist anyone with it.
Very cool. I was thinking when Lisa, when you mentioned 4th of July, I was like, wow, it'd be great.
Yeah, that's our plan. Our plan to have it there. We'll utilize it for our youth academy as far as community service events. We can use it for some of the events up at the Green, not only just to document it for community services, to make a video or to do some community outreach, but also to your point, for where people are parking, for public safety, to identify that maybe for next year. And that might be something that we work through for events with the Board of Ed as well. We do the OM3D program. If they want to initiate another program where they're inviting schools or people from another town where we're not sure logistically how it's going to work out, maybe that first year we do deploy the drone, get a better understanding of where people are parking, where they're walking from, where the areas of concern are. So this way we can document that, we can flag it in the video, and we can take that information and put it into our operations plan for the next time that they do a program similar.
Thank you, Captain. Chief Zagorski, I know that you mentioned precision policing and how effective it has been for the first quarter of this year. Is that something that you've done in the past years, or have you stepped up precision policing? Are those numbers different this year? Are you making more arrests because of precision policing? Are you doing anything different?
The numbers I was referring to, that was from 2023, not in the first quarter. We have had some success in the first quarter with some arrests with the precision policing. It's something that we've used in the past, but our ability to use it more, because unfortunately we're getting more data to use, meaning more crimes were being committed. So you're using that data to deploy your resources, the different times, the locations. So yes, we're using it more because we're getting more incidents where we have to use it.
Okay.
Just to piggyback off what the chief had said, I know he had referenced the spike during COVID in auto thefts. One of the first steps that we took that actually wasn't in this presentation, and some of you may have heard me talk about this, is prior to 2021-ish, we've had 4 designated areas. So say we have 4 officers on assignment for the day, they're on the road, they have 3 residential, majority residential, but some commercial areas, and then obviously our central business district, which is our area 4. It's our CBD, and we span out to like the Village Green up to DeForest. That being said, because of precision policing is an effective tool for policing, we identified very early on that there were certain areas within the town that some of these criminals were prioritizing for the high-end vehicles, the ease to the 24 and 78 access. So what we did was we took those 4 main areas and we subdivide them within those areas grids. So what we now have is certain areas, especially the areas that we've seen an uptick that would result in our precision policing deployment, where an area might run from Summit Avenue all the way down to Broad Street with Springfield Avenue as like the dividing midpoint. We now can take that north side of town and divide that. I think we have it divided into maybe anywhere between 8 and 9 different grids. And within each grid, we have anywhere between 8 and 10 streets. So the way that works is if our officer is area 3 and he's riding the Route 24 corridor, and we know that, this 2 or 3 areas within that Route 24 corridor has been targeted within the last few weeks, we'll prioritize the grids within that corridor. So whether it be grid A, B, C, D, all the way through. And not only does that require that every time an officer generates a call for service within that grid, because we worked with Mountain Valley Emergency Communications to add these grids to our geographic overview of the city, we now have accountability. So I know that in speaking with some residents during the uptick, they had said they saw an increase in officers in their areas, a lot increase in presence. I'm fairly certain that's because of the grid checks, because once we had that data to support which areas we needed to prioritize, we would then deploy our resources to those areas and mandate, hey, we need at least 4 to 6 grid checks on these grids within these hours, because that's what the data is telling us that we need. And then we're able to track that data. And I can't believe, I don't know how many times that the chief has been at a council meeting where he's talked about the statistics on how many times we've driven down a specific street, and we have that data now. So if somebody says they live on Summit Avenue and their vehicle was stolen between, this time, how many times have we seen an officer on Summit Avenue? I can go to that grid that Summit Avenue is in and find out that we've had officers in that area this many times over the course of this many weeks. So that's one of the things that we did very early on. It was free. It wasn't something like technology that burdened the budget. It was just an alteration in tactics, and that's something we're continuing to reevaluate based on the information and the data that comes in.
Great explanation. I appreciate that. And Chief Evers, now I don't know if people know this, and you told me this the other day. So the training that you do in the firehouse, or that you will do in the new firehouse, you mimic what windows look like on particular buildings throughout Summit, and that makes it easier for you to actually make entry, because you kind of train on that. Can you talk about that? I thought that was really interesting.
Sure, yeah. So obviously every municipality is different around the state and around the country. So we always focus on what we call them target hazards, or hazards within our community, and we focus our training and our strategies and tactics and our policies based upon whatever areas in town that target hazards for us. So our uptown is very old buildings, a lot of windows, the challenging to get out of. So part of our goal when we built a new firehouse was incorporating as much training props within our building so we can constantly train on them. And one of the displays we have is that on our training mezzanine, we have different size windows, and those simulate some of the challenges that our firemen face when we go to certain buildings that have older type of windows. We have a lot of gear on ourselves. It's hard to get out of a window, so we have techniques. We have harnesses. We can actually practice bailing out of a window. If the environment gets too hostile, we have to leave that environment very quickly. We have rope and repelling device on our turnout gear. We can quickly go out of a window. So we have these windows that kind of simulate some of the challenges we have in town, in older homes and older businesses in town. So
Right.
And a lot of our training props in the firehouse simulate that same kind of technique.
That is excellent. And my last question is for the mayor. Thank you. 30 seconds. Mayor Fagan, now that you've been working with the police and the fire department, What have you learned, and what do you think your biggest challenges are?
So first of all, I hate microphones. First of all, what I want to echo, because one of the things I knew but has been validated and reinforced since I've become mayor, is what Al said earlier, which is it is about the people, and you guys and your departments are spectacular, and we're very, very fortunate to have you. And as part of Local Government Week, I want to be sure that I say that you are appreciated, and that again, that this city is safe, very safe. Because of your two departments. And I forgot your other question. It was, what are my challenges?
Yeah, biggest challenge. What do you think your biggest challenges are? Now that you know what the fire department and police do, you as the head.
So my first challenge is speaking after Jamel Boyer. It's my first. my real challenges. I would say finding the money tree to support really what these guys need to do their jobs. We do the best we can in terms of budgeting and supporting wish lists, the capital budget, and the operating budgets, and if I had it my way and we had an infinite amount of money, you would get everything you wanted. Sadly, I've been told that there is no money tree, and so we do sometimes have to make hard decisions, and I think that's the biggest challenge in local government. That's all I have. Are there any other questions? Oh,
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, Andy Miniger, Common Council member, Ward 1. Hello. For Captain Peters or Chief Zagorski, thank you for this presentation, by the way, everybody. I loved hearing about the special programs that Summit Police offers. And I wanted to know more about, because this was an interesting one when I read about it, the Arrive Together program. I would love to hear your assessment of this program that probably may not have numbers to provide to us, but how you feel it's working in these really sensitive kind of situations, and also how the logistics of working with different departments from around the area and going to different areas, how that's worked out for this police.
So I don't have numbers. I do know that it's managed by the Union County Prosecutor's Office, which is a big help for us because they're able to kind of bring everyone under their umbrella. When it comes to scheduling, the schedule comes out once a month. And because it depends on how many calls for service we go to. So obviously Union Township's much bigger than Summit. They handle a lot more calls for service than we do on an annual basis. So their responsibility, their obligation to the program is greater than ours. Our obligation is to provide an officer only 2 days a month, every other week. From there, it's backfilled with officers from Kenilworth, from Hillside, from King University, from Union, and from Roselle. Logistically, it's worked out really well. They have a woman from the prosecutor's office, again, that's managing all the scheduling. And if somebody calls out sick from a police department or somebody can't make it one day, we all kind of just pony up, somebody fills the gap. We don't say, oh, no, we're scheduled for Thursday, we can't take Tuesday. Everybody helps out. We work in, both police and fire work in a dynamic environment where everything's constantly changing, including manpower. It is a good program. I think it's beneficial to streamline the process to get people the mental health that they need. As far as it being an initial first response, it's not really practical, at least right now. Again, if we have a Summit officer, they're going to prioritize following up on Summit cases while our officer's with them. And then if they get a call for service in Kenilworth, they then have to drive to Kenilworth. So that there's a logistical time period that it's going to take getting from Summit to Kenilworth, and vice versa. If the Kenilworth officer's in Kenilworth, that takes a little time to get to here. So it's not necessarily substituting our officers responding to mental health crises, but it is giving us an opportunity to have someone from Trinitas show up and streamline that process to get somebody the help they need. Because in years past, we used to have to, and we still do after hours, contact Trinitas and have them send out a screener. That's like getting somebody who's on call, give them a call, hey, we need you up in Summit. The turnaround on that could be 45 minutes to an hour at the very least. Now, at least we already have someone in a car. They're in a police car with an emergency responder. So if they need to get there, they can get there much faster. And then once they do get there, now we have eyes on that person and they can set them up with a bed within, make a phone call, and then we have what we need. So it has been a great resource. I'd say for us, for the most part, we've seen more on the follow-up. Again, we've had a variety of times where we've either called for the mental health professional or we were responding to another town for them to assist, and we've been called off because the person will just agree, I'll voluntarily go up to Overlook, and then we don't need them. However, we'll still encourage them to create a profile with our mental health professional, so then they do follow-ups. We've seen that a lot with some of our unhoused population, where we've gone on a call for service with them, where they've gone through that everlasting rotating door where they'll go in, they'll get the mental health that they need, they then get released. Unfortunately, there's times where medication needs to be taken or a program needs to be attended, and then they fall through on that promise. And then now at least we have this mental health professional to then follow up and say, hey, you were supposed to be here on this date, you're supposed to be doing this, why are we not complying? So it's creating profiles for people, which gives us a better understanding of what their needs are, especially working with someone who specifically does that for a living. Again, like I said in my initial presentation, we're good at a lot of things, but our job description is endless. And there are times where sometimes people just don't want to talk to police. And one of the aspects of the program that I think is that makes it a little bit more inviting for people in crisis is that the officer that's assigned to the arrival person is not in uniform. They're actually in plain clothes. So when we assist them, we don't come in with the blue uniform, because oftentimes that's the biggest challenge that we need to overcome in speaking with people is they don't see Ryan, they just see the uniform. So now when this mental health professional goes in, they don't go in alone, they always go in with security, but our security is in plain clothes. So they're a lot less intimidating, and people are a lot more prone to talk to people that they're less intimidated by. But overall, I think it's been great as far as the county's concerned. Their quarterly meetings, Detective Majuli has really spearheaded it. Captain Schreiber has done a lot of the scheduling, but she's our CIT officer, our crisis intervention team officer. She's also our humane officer, and she's been our point of contact with the Arrive. So she goes on all the quarterly meetings, and she'll get. If you want to, I could probably get the data from her and pass it off to the chief to see where we are as far as the county's concerned.
Kevin Smallwood, Councilman at Large. Thank you both, police and fire for having this great presentation. I had a lot of questions in my head, but I narrowed it down to two. One was just to follow up on Councilman Miniger, because I think that's a great opportunity or a great program as well. How did we determine did the Union County determine which towns we work with?
Yeah, so Union County grouped us. We're in the north sector. So I think it was a combination of geographic location, but also logistical needs. Some departments don't have the means to supply an officer every other week. It's a challenge for us at times because, we're dealing with vacations, we're dealing with sick time, we're dealing with injuries. So if we're at minimum and the officers who's supposed to be assigned to that program that day, we might have to bring somebody in on overtime or reassign someone from the traffic bureau or detective bureau to backfill that position. So it does become logistically challenged, but I think the benefit that we gain in the long run, it's worth it. But it is managed by the county, and they determine which sector we would be in. So we're in the north sector. How they determine that, I'm not sure. But I do know that like New Providence, Mountainside, Berkeley Heights, I think they're grouped with Plainfield, Scotch Plains on the west. So we're not with them.
A lot of that was determined on the timing that each town came into the program. Each town came into the program at different times. There were like 3 or 4 or 5 towns that were a pilot program. So I do see down the road them readjusting the regions, because it would make more sense to have us with New Providence, Berkeley Heights. It's closer. Right now, we have to go to Hillside because we were at the tail end of coming into the program.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think one of the downsides of partnering us up with the departments that are closer to us geographically is we're the busy department. So then our obligation is going to be, from twice a month to maybe 10 times a month like Union has. So it really depends on the size of the department based on the grouping that you're with.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. So my next question is, it's only one question, but it's twofold. In terms of the children wearing helmets on the bikes, I believe it's Detective now, right? Stanek? Yep. Detective Stanek, I believe several years ago, fell off his bike, and I believe I don't know if it was his police bike.
Ironically, it was actually to be a bike officer, you have to go through training at the police academy. He was actually doing that training at that time, and it was a windy day. Recycling bin went into the street. Somebody tried to avoid it in front of him and caused a chain reaction. He actually went over his handlebars and struck his head. Fortunately enough, he was wearing his helmet. However, it cracked the helmet. So the severity of the crash was pretty bad, and that's proof that the helmet does work. the injuries were fairly minimal to him, and at least there was no head trauma. But yes, you're correct.
When he told me the story, he actually felt like the helmet saved his life.
It definitely did. He was actually one of the officers that would go into the schools and do the bicycle safety programs, and he would bring that helmet with him, just to show the children firsthand, that these things do happen. And if you didn't have the proper equipment, everybody has to wear equipment. Professional athletes, you have to have the safety equipment to do the job. And it was really a firsthand reminder and a good experience for these kids to see up close, what the helmet actually does.
Right. And the second fold of that similar question is, there's an increasing number of electric bikes coming onto our streets. Most of them are being, ridden by kids, teenagers. Is there a law for wearing a helmet? Because I know if you have a motorcycle's license, or if riding a motorcycle, wearing a helmet is required. Is there a speed limit for a specific vehicle or bicycle where they have to wear a helmet?
Well, regardless of what the speed limit is for these electric bikes, a helmet needs to be worn. It's a gray area as far as how they're classified. During COVID, they signed legislation allowing these e-bikes to be ridden on the street, and the scooters. So anything 750 watts or more requires registration and or insurance. We've had some instances where these bikes have gotten into collisions, and one in particular, we had to find out if and how it could be registered. There was no certificate of origin, which means that New Jersey DMV will not register this thing. It's over 750 watts, it's required to. We've called several different insurance companies throughout the area. A lot of the officers called their own insurance company. One rides a motorcycle, and they wouldn't even insure it. We found one insurance company would provide this insurance. They're in the middle of trying to pass new legislation on these things to regulate them. I mean, they're rolling liabilities. Basically, if one of these bikes were to strike your car, there's no insurance on it. Now we have a problem, and it's going to cause the same amount of damage as if a motor vehicle, a car, full-size car, would strike your car. So these are some of the challenges that they're going to have to try to work through. And even as far as licensing, you have to have a license for a moped. We don't see too many of those nowadays. But to ride these e-bikes, you have to have either a driver's license or a motorcycle license, which we're finding that a lot of people aren't abiding by. So we don't have the same challenge as maybe some of the bigger cities. I went to Jersey City a few months ago, and that was an experience because there's a lot of Uber Eats drivers and everybody, on these scooters driving around. And I mean, it's definitely stressful because they are required to abide by Title 39 motor vehicle law, and they're cutting across, delineated traffic and so on and so forth. And I mean, it was something. So I think within probably the next year, you're going to see some more legislation come out to just for overall safety for everybody, and regulate these things just a little bit more. And as far as the speeds, you can go online and you can see some of these things go up to 40 miles an hour.
Right.
So it is going to be a challenge.
Is it just treated like a regular bike and they can ride down the middle of the street? Because there was a situation on Union Place one day where there was a kid driving the e-bike, and there was someone literally almost standing up and had on the back and had his hands on his shoulders riding down the middle of Union Place.
Right.
And there were obviously Union Place, there's angled parking when they're backing up. Yeah, these kids don't know really what to look for when they're riding these e-bikes and going 25 miles an hour.
Correct. So right now, I mean, they are governed under Title 39, so they have to follow the rules of the road.
Okay.
A lot of times in the center of town, you'll see even kids on regular bicycles or on the sidewalks. They're required to be, on the roadway to ride these bikes. In the center of town, I don't think that's, a realistic thing. They should be walking their bikes on the sidewalk, instead of riding in the street because, there's a lot of congestion. So to your the answer to your question, yes, they are supposed to follow, Title 39. Can they be issued a summons? Absolutely. The administrative part of it, where the insurance and the licensing and stuff like that, we really need to move forward, with it sooner than later.
I wasn't so concerned about the summonsing. I was just, just from a safety perspective. I would really hate to have one of these kids get hit by a car backing up.
I get it. I mean, fortunate enough, we haven't had too many instances with electric e-bikes, but, we have had a couple of them. And one in particular, it was being ridden on the sidewalk, and it was by an adult, and struck another adult, unknowing to them that they were exiting a parking lot. And, it could have been a lot worse than what it was, but it was traumatic enough that, we had to deal with it and make sure that we can do everything possible to keep everybody as safe as possible. So, there may be more education when we go into these schools, as we get it from the Department of Transportation and Division of Highway Traffic Safety, and reaching the kids when they're younger before they even get on these electric scooters. You're going to see a lot more of the electric scooters, I think, with the younger kids, because they're able to handle it. These e-bikes are a little bit bigger, heavier, and they kind of have to grow into them. So if we can get the message out there and the education aspect of it, I think we'll be pointing in the right direction and try to keep everybody as safe as possible.
I see a PSA in Lieutenant Daly's future.
Thank you all very much.
Just quickly too on the e-bikes, we just got the DMV sent us a chart that kind of outlines the different kinds. There's like 3 or 4 different classifications. It's very confusing, but we could put that. We could post that because each class has a different regulations. Who has to wear helmets? Who has to have lighting? Because that's another problem. Late at night, some of these bikes are adults that work in restaurants, and they'll be driving on Springfield Avenue. Some of them don't have lights. Now that's a real problem.
Andrew McCarty, and I know it's late, so I'll be quick. On the Arrive Together, I'm glad to hear that's going well. I worked at the AG's office, and I started the program. I designed it. It's operating in all 21 counties now, which is great.
For the record, I did not know that when I answered the question. Thank you.
You did a great job, Captain, describing it. Just a couple of things I would add on as benefits are, and you can probably describe this better than I can, but in the absence of that kind of program, you come into contact with somebody in a mental health crisis and you need Trinitas, which is the county screening service, psychiatric screeners. You could be waiting for them for a long time. So it reduces the wait times. In a place like Elizabeth, it's usually the screeners getting there first, waiting for Elizabeth PD to arrive. So when people... Right. So now when you guys are together, that is just so much shorter and so much more efficient. It also, I think, officers who are paired with the mental health screener are just riding around with a mental health professional for hours. And so it's really good training that they can take back and learn and apply when they're not with the screener. And then the last thing is, especially on the follow-ups, I assume that repeat callers to 911 are a problem here, as they are everywhere. And, the more that those people are getting seen and heard proactively, you can cut down on repeat 911 calls and save police resources for other things. And then in terms of who you all are paired with, I think that we shouldn't be shy about trying to get that optimized so that Summit is paired with the right municipalities to cut down on the drive time. So it is a statewide program. It's, governor's proposed $20 million for it in the budget. There's a person, Tiffany Wilson, I don't know if you know her from.
Yep, she came from Union County Prosecutor's
Office. She's from Union County. She runs it at the AG's office now. So, reach out to her, or I can help facilitate something. We can make sure, and working with the prosecutor, as well, make sure that we're configured with the right set of towns. But thanks for your guys' work.
Appreciate it.
Just want to briefly touch. There is one more branch of services in town. It's the Office of Emergency Management. They play a vital role in supporting any kind of major event in town. So typically, police or fire respond to a normal incident. Couple hours, we go there, we mitigate the problem, and we go back to the firehouse or the police station. But large-scale incidents like a hurricane exhaust our resources very quickly. So they're large-scale incidents that last sometimes days and weeks. And the Office of Emergency Management comes in, and they actually assist operations in the field. So without them, we couldn't function on long-scale incidents. So like a typical one, like a hurricane, wires down, trees down, PD and FD are involved on the street, dealing with those emergencies, emergency management comes in and they talk about long-term planning, how we're going to mitigate for the next couple days or weeks, what resources are needed, financial obligations. So all the things are in place, and we use the incident management system, which is a great tool to organize all these resources and all these people in the street that are mitigating the problem. But they're a great tool, and a great division of the City of Public Safety is that branch of health. I think we just need to mention that because they do play a vital role in long-term scales within our community.
Mayor, do you want to add anything? Do you want to have any closing remarks?
Of course I do.
Of course.
Again, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I want to thank HTTV for recording so that people who weren't able to come tonight can view this entire presentation. I think it's really valuable. And again, thank you all for your presentations, for your time, for your dedication. And Amy, Karen's a special thank you to you for organizing, and to David and to Rosie for organizing and for making this go as smoothly as it did. And I'm just very grateful that that we are so fortunate. So I just want to say thank you again.
Okay. Council President, may I have a motion to adjourn?